Good morning. I see people are still joining up, so we've given it a couple of 3 minutes just for people to join. So whilst I wait for people to grab the rest of their coffee and come down and sit at their desks, then we'll just wait another minute or so, and then we'll kick off. I trust everybody has everybody's audio is working, and if everybody have any questions as we go along today, then just post them into the chat, and either I or anybody else from my team will be able to answer the questions as we go along. Okay, so we're 4 minutes in. I think we can start. So good morning, everybody. I hope we're all here for the same reason. This is DoiT's cost optimization session, focused on FinOps, or through the lens of FinOps. We will look at the world of cost optimization on AWS, and have a little bit of an exploration of some things you can take away from today. So my objective here today is to hope that you will all have something new that you'll learn. I'm sure you're all using AWS. You're all here for cost optimization. So I'd imagine there's going to be lots of people who have a reasonable knowledge of a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, but hopefully there'll be some new bits and pieces. We will try to stay within the. This will last no more than a couple of hours, so we'll try to stay within that. Let's go through to the agenda. So a little bit about myself before we get into the agenda. So I'm Ian Fairs. So I'm a technical account manager here at DoiT. I've been with DoiT now for a year or so. Prior to that, I spent just over half a decade at AWS as a technical account manager, working in enterprise support, where I helped a multitude of customers, both large and small, save a few $100 here and there, and sometimes millions. So it's a fairly wide breadth. Today we've got a couple of guest speakers as well, so we'll cover those as we go through. So what we'll do is we'll cover a little intro, who DoiT are, and what we're all about. Then we'll cover a little around FinOps and what that means in this context. Now, what this is not is a deep dive into FinOps. This is because I'm going to be looking at cost optimization through the lens of FinOps. It's probably worth talking about what FinOps is, etc. So I'll introduce you to the idea of FinOps. It's financial operations in the same way as developer operations is DevOps, but it's more of a concept and a philosophy to try and help customers get a handle on the challenges that we've faced over the last few decades, to be honest. But in the cloud, the challenges of keeping control of costs is a new one, because it's switched from capital expenditure to operational expenditure, and predicting what it's going to cost next month is sometimes a hard task. Then we'll cover a little bit dive into compute. So most people's infrastructure consists of compute, and we'll dive into a little bit around that. Then we'll have a demo of Cost Explorer, AWS Cost Explorer, and how that can be used we'll talk some of the FinOps inform phase, and we'll look at Cost Explorer to see if we can get some insights as to how to use that to really extract good information. That'll be led by Noah, our guest speaker. And then we'll have a look around reservations and optimization and see how they apply. Then we'll explore a little bit around Graviton using Spot instances. So those of you that are unfamiliar with Spot, I'll do a quick intro into that and highlight some tips that you can use for using Spot in things like production. So I've helped some very large customers use Spot and scale it into the organization with no additional downtime, just huge savings in cost, and actually more uptime because of the way that you have to architect when you start using Spot. Then Lucas will talk us through how to apply these philosophies to containers and give us a little intro around that. Then I'll give a brief mention to Marketplace and then summarize everything up at the end. So the last section, the last few slides, are really intended for people that are looking to optimize a particular service or product. Then we'll have some slides there. So I'll walk you through how to interpret those. But the intention there is for you to take those away afterwards, and we will be sharing the slides now afterwards. So you can then use that as a guide to inform your progress and help you save some costs in particular areas. For example, if you've got some snapshots and you're curious as to what kind of philosophies to apply for snapshots, then you can just drop onto that slide and have a walk through to see what you can do. So That said, if we go along, anybody have any questions and they're pressing to the material in front, then you can raise a hand if it's particularly pressing. But best practice is to just write some comments into the chat. If you haven't written anything into the chat so far today, then please take the opportunity to do so now. Just say hello, say good morning, say whatever you need to say on the into the chat, and then we can make sure that everything is working. And if you have any questions and I don't see them, then hopefully Lucas or Noah will be able to answer as we go along. I've got some content in here from the FinOps.org. So if you want to learn more about FinOps, you can just go to FinOps.org and browse and have a look around. There's a lot of information on there around specifics. So it's things like what not to do, what the difference between cost optimization and cost management is. So have a look. This is not a deep dive. This is an introduction. So I cannot possibly describe everything we need to cover in the time we have available. So this is I'll introduce you to some concepts that you can then go away and learn more about afterwards. And hopefully, if you have any questions, we can ask that as we go along as well. This is not a video on demand, so I'm an actual human being sitting on the end here, hence the faltering and the stuttering occasionally. So if you have questions, definitely ask. I can only see a handful of people in the chat so far. So either you're all still asleep and need that extra coffee, or your keyboards aren't working, which is fine. We probably just need new batteries. So a little introduction from us. So who are DoiT? Well, we've been around for about 10 years now. So and what we do is we essentially, I like to advertise our services as we're reducing friction of use of the cloud. So we have a lot of countries that we're operating in. We have a lot of customers. All of our engineers have got a ton of certifications between them, and our support always receives 90+% CSATs. In fact, 98% is actually, I think it's actually over 98.4 when I last checked. But we're an AWS Premier Tier partner. So we work very, very closely with AWS and a bunch of other customers. As you can see, some logos on here as well. Some of my customers are very large players here in the UK. So I'm based in sunny Cambridge in the UK, hence my accent. And with regards to my accent as well, as I'm talking, I may sometimes talk a little fast or not pronounce my words quite correctly. If that's the case, then again, prompt me in the chat and I will slow down and I'll tighten up. So what do we do? How do we reduce this friction in the cloud? So we are also using the cloud, the same as you are. And we discovered a number of things that were bothersome to us. So there are some challenges that we've met with some intelligent technology. So one of those things were like reservations and trying to calculate. One of my biggest challenges when I was at Amazon as a TAM in the early days, before the reservations recommendation engine was in existence, was we'd have to sit down with Excel sheets and try and work out what would we need to reserve over what period for what duration, and how we're going to pay for that upfront, etc. So working with customers to try and answer those questions was very challenging. So DoiT has faced all of these challenges too. So we've developed a series of technologies to be able to help our customers solve these on the day-to-day basis. There's no easier question in the world than the one you know the answer to. And unfortunately, if you don't know the answer, it can be a very challenging question indeed. So we have a range of engineers that have unmatched expertise in the cloud industry. So I myself am ex-AWS. We have lots of people ex-Microsoft, ex-Google. So and people from our customers as well, of course. So we have a rich expertise that can answer many questions and help guide your journey through the cloud. Helping you build it better and help you understand and optimize. So we have a cloud console that you can log into and open tickets and then view your infrastructure, etc. One of our key differentiators is that it's a simple start. You can sign up very quickly indeed. But we have a zero cost of customer. So we don't offer a free tier where you say, hey, come on in and we'll give you some advice and then charge you extra afterwards. All of our services are provided to you at zero cost to you. So how do we do that? Well, we are funded by the cloud vendors in order to provide this service to help them scale and help deliver a better service. So that said, if you've got any questions around any of what I've just said, again, the chat, I can see a few hellos in there. Hello and good morning, everybody. It's good to see that there are actually people listening to me, and this little dot at the bottom of my camera is not the only thing that's listening to me. So cost optimization. What is cost optimization? Well, and there is a differentiation between cost optimization, cost management, and FinOps. So loosely, we can think of management as the applying commercial constructs over the top of your infrastructure. Optimization is making infrastructure changes to make lasting changes, and FinOps is the controls and policy that sit around that to help you frame those kind of discussions. So the challenge has long been that controlling and planning costs in the cloud is a challenge. I often joke that there are several questions in the world that are unanswerable. Are we ever going to get a unified theory of quantum gravity? And are we ever going to understand cloud billing in complete depth? And I have an opinion on both of those. But it is extremely complicated. So it requires some additional attention around the day-to-day to be able to really, because it's so complicated, and it used to be that you would just say, okay, the data center is going to cost X amount per month. Let's just sit with it. Now in the cloud, costs are so variable that it can be quite a challenge. And so because of that complexity, we have a number of challenges inside organizations. So because of the complexity, sometimes finance doesn't understand development doesn't understand finance. So finance is saying, hey, how can we capitalize these costs? Developers are asking, hey, how can we use this new innovative service? And nobody knows how to answer each other. So creating a common vocabulary between all the departments is absolutely critical. FinOps allows you to observe, predict, and control your cloud costs, or at least it tries to. And the purpose here is to try and increase the innovation by helping free up some of that extra cash. So we look first of the way we approach this is we first observe and control the costs, and then we intelligently apply reservations and dynamically and automatically. That's later on in the development. But the purpose of this is so you can focus on what your business is doing rather than focusing on the bills and trying to continuously cost optimize and try not to have arguments with the finance department. There are opportunities to decrease cost without impacting performance always. But how do you know when you've finished your cost optimization? Well, your cost optimization is done when you have when the cost of performing those cost optimizations is greater than the cost of the cost optimization itself. It helps you prepare for growth. And so you'll find that as I've seen customers, as they optimize, they free up some time for their engineers because they're not continuously rushing around trying to answer questions that they can't answer. And that frees up some overhead space, which enables they can reinvest that back into the business. And then they're designing and operating a much more high-performance status. So we've developed a bunch of tools to help with this, and I won't belabor these too much in this presentation. This is to focus on the actual FinOps and cost optimization itself. But so we have a cloud console through which you can view reporting, etc. It's very much like the AWS Cost Explorer, except that we also have a couple of extra features. Like we have dynamic metrics, and so you can use calculated metrics and bring those up onto dashboards. We have a developer API, so you can bring that up and integrate that in as well without having to do all the undifferentiated heavy lifting. We have FlexSave, which I mentioned earlier, which is the dynamic application of reservations. So we purchase a bunch of reservations. We share the savings with our customers. I've got all of my customers, in fact, benefit from the huge savings. We have a spot scaling product as well, which helps you implement Spot into your earlier environments and eventually into production. And of course, the consultancy is something that is the cherry on the top of that. So it helps if you've got questions at design time, or if you've got questions or something's on fire and it needs helping with, then that's where our consultancy and support comes in and really shines. This graph is maybe familiar to some. So you start out in the cloud and everything is good. As an ex-developer myself, there was nothing quite like the excitement of writing a new product and developing that new and shiny thing, because at that moment, everything is possible. And so it's great. And so the costs go up, but you're not really focused on the cost. You're focusing on delivery, and the costs go up to the point where somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, maybe you could stop letting those go up now, and maybe dial that back a little bit. So then there's a cost freeze sometimes, and then there's a big push for cost optimization, because of course you can't just freeze your business on infrastructure. Sometimes that no more spend is because there are some savings as well as growth, so it just goes flat. But then there's a big push, massive cost optimization, and then you're one and done, and now we're saving loads of money because we've now rewound it back to halfway through our journey, and then you start growing again. The trouble is with this is a one-time event. So you save the money and everybody congratulates and this is amazing, and then they move on, and then 6-7 months later it's the same problem again. Now you can either do it through an iterative cycle of every time the question comes up, people go, oh, we need to save more money, and you just go through that whole big crunch process again. Or you can apply something a little bit more sensible and try to get a handle on it from the outset. So cost is always in the awareness. Therefore, it's not a one-time event, but it's a part of everyday life. Which brings us to FinOps. So FinOps, financial operations, and this is how we do it. Which is a phrase that I have said more than once this week. So FinOps is the answer to that challenge of the all hands on deck kind of response to a cost optimization event. FinOps allows a controlled and consistent view of your commercial infrastructure and keeping a handle on your costs in a way that doesn't require an all hands on deck kind of event. So if you stop here and you're already bored of my voice and have other things to jump off to attend to, then just remember this. And I've taken to quoting myself because I find it both amusing, and I find that I've had some good things to say over the years. So turn it off when you can, right size when you can't, and then reserve. Or if you do it, use Flex Save. And this is the core principle, right? So if you're not using it, turn it off, because nothing's going to be cheaper than the thing that's not running at all. Right size it. So if you've got a massive instance because the vendor originally said that you've got a big firewall product, and they said, oh, you definitely need this size instance in a data center. So you've replicated that in the cloud and then realized that it's massively overspec'd because the utilization is at 2 or 3%. Then you can right size that down to make it more cost effective. And then once you've done all those infrastructure changes and those core changes, then you can apply reservations afterwards. That said, don't suffer from analysis paralysis, which I've seen far too many times from my customers, where they spend so long thinking about what they should be doing that months are ticking by and money's just burning off all the time. So there's a bunch of points on here. I'm not going to cover every single one, but this is the core. This is the root of the problem for FinOps. This is why it exists. So people using the wrong resources. So a workload was built 2 or 3 years ago, and nobody's ever looked at it ever since because there's no technology review. And so they're running old instances of the wrong size. Perhaps they're using a proxy instead of a NAT gateway, or so it's using wrong resources and applying them incorrectly. Used in inactive, oversized development approach. So if your approach to development is we'll just hack some stuff together and see if it works, or if it's we need a full waterfall design and then change controls, etc. afterwards, that approach will either hinder or accelerate innovation in your business. And the old waterfall approach I used to see that super common inside fintech, because they said, yeah, there's regulators, the risk of it going wrong is very, very high. Therefore, they have to have a huge amount of controls. But on the flip side, with DevSecOps and other practices, we can see that high pace, high agility also working. And then when you integrate FinOps into that practice as well, then everybody's very focused on the costs. They can see how much things are cost whilst they're being developed. By that way, when they hit production, then they're already cost effective. There is no cost optimization cycle to do because it's inherent in the design of the machine. Purchase approach, so making sure you're buying, you're purchasing sensibly. So you want to make sure that you've got appropriate credit and discounting structures in place. Analytics, lack of automation is a super common one from a couple of years ago. I see it less and less today, but still, in fact, I don't see so much of a lack of automation today. I see more of lots of customers telling me that they'll get around to automating that real soon. It's on the backlog, is a common phrase. So these are the kind of roots of the issue. If you go to the FinOps.org and type in any one of these, you'll get a chapter and verse, lots of documents, huge numbers of contributors with lots of depth around this. And I will just give you a quick intro to this, though. So, of course, I don't want to just point you to a website and say, hey, go read. So FinOps is a new discipline focused on cross-functional collaboration to control, predict, and manage cloud costs, is the, in a nutshell, definition. And so it's about increasing the visibility, allowing increased governance, and having cost optimization throughout. There are some key points, and this is a major one that I often bring up. FinOps is not about saving money. If you want to save money and your cloud costs are far too high, turn everything off. It will be free. It will cost you no more money. It will have some impact on your business, of course, i.e. it will probably collapse completely, but it will no longer cost you money. So it's not about just saving money. It's about making more money. It's about being profitable, having the money and the available credits to be able to push innovation and increase productivity, delivering more value to the end customers. It's FinOps is about focusing on your business metrics. So if you're just looking at the bottom line, hey, we spent X last month, we need to spend X minus 10% this month, then again, you can do that, but you probably can't do that without business impact or a huge amount of engineering resource a lot of the time. So focusing on your business metrics, things like how much is a thing costing, and what does that how does that end up on the bill? So one of the questions I asked all of my customers, and it's an insidious question because it sounds simple and it's not an easy answer, is do you know how your infrastructure relates to your business? So if your business was to double in size next week, which would be fantastic, I'm sure, would your infrastructure double, or would it stay the same? Or what would actually happen? What would be the impact? Is everything on the edge, therefore it would automatically scale with it? And therefore not necessarily double, but it would go up by 50%. But understanding that ratio provides a deep insight into your business. And FinOps helps focus on that. So at the run stage, so there's a crawl, walk, and run stage of FinOps. At the run stage, there's a thing we call unit economics, which is where you look at your cost of goods sold, you look at the how much you're selling them for, you subtract one from the other, and that's the first number. But then you factor in the overheads, the resources that it takes to keep that actually happening. So business metrics are super important, and there's nothing more important than making sure things are tagged. So if you're not tagging all of your infrastructure today, then think about doing so. Tagging is another one of those things which is an extremely deep topic that we could do an entire session on just pure tagging. There's some great white papers by Amazon on this. So have a look just go to the website, Google some AWS tagging approaches, and you'll see that you very quickly understand the challenges involved. But by tagging things, by seeing things, we can then, when we tune them, then we can see the impact of our efforts. So cloud unit economics is how we align to business metrics. Fixed versus elastic costs. Lots of people like to lift, shift, and run. So they'll lift it out of the data center, they'll put it into the cloud, and then they're done because that's the end of their journey. That's not the way. The right way to really use the cloud is to use its elasticity, which means that you then need to tune it to be cloud performant. The lift and shift approach is perfectly valid. Lift, shift, transform is another one I've seen, but the more variables you introduce into a process, the more risk there is of it going wrong. So FinOps is a life cycle. So it doesn't just, it's everything here is a life cycle. So the cost optimization is never a one and done. So the informed process is where we're using those tags to be able to increase transparency and surface the visibility of what's actually happening. And here I quite like the feature of our CMP product, our Cloud Console, where we can apply attributions across different accounts. So if you've got a core account where you're doing some development and you've got a shared account and there is resources across both of those used by a single team, you can use tags, etc., to create an attribution, and that one attribution is now available for reporting, and you can then throw that up onto a wall, and so you can see, hey, these are our current team costs, and that kind of real-time feedback is invaluable. Having budgets and forecasts is quite important. It's not normally, as an ex-developer, I never cared about budgets and forecasts, but I certainly cared about being told off for spending too much money. The optimize phase is about right-sizing, applying those reserved instances, getting as much automation into place as possible. Automation makes everything repeatable, so it reduces the risk of error. Looking at your culture is super critical. You have to have a culture, and culture is very hard to change. But if you have a culture of where people are open to ask questions, and then people source up the crowd around that to help, then that will really help you. Ultimately, you're looking the panacea. The target here is for unit economics. So you want to be able to say, hey, when we deliver this click, or we deliver this page, or we deliver this product, this is how much it costs us to deliver that. That way, if you do some cost optimization, then you can see the impact because your cost for delivery will be reducing. That way, you can really show the value to the business. So just to summarize here, so you've got inform, there's your dashboard reporting, etc. You've got some optimization where you're turning off your idle resources. Just a quick caveat on idle resources. Of course, you've probably heard this before, but if you've got a machine which is running for 1 minute and 30 seconds, it's running at 100%, and then the last 30 seconds, it's running at 0%, then the average for that minute will be 50%. Obviously, why am I saying this? Because average CPU is often used as a metric for performance right-sizing, and it can be dangerous. So if it was running at 100% for the first part, and then it was obviously overloaded and probably undersized, but if you looked at the performance metrics, you'd say, hey, we could probably lower the size of this a little bit. So pay particular attention to the min-maxes, and always, of course, never forget RAM when you're looking at right-sizing. Using serverless technologies is great because it scales with it as you do. Both up and down. So during COVID, we saw a lot of scale backs, and we saw a lot of people that thought they were going to scale back and then needed help to actually perform that. The operate phase is about the continuous improvement, about the making sure you have the value to the business of being exposed at all times, because that it heads off any questions around, hey, why is our bill XXX when we were expecting it to be XXX minus 50%? So it avoids those awkward questions, and it really helps everybody just have fun and get on with the day job and deliver success to our customers. So key to the inform phase is AWS Cost Explorer. So it will help you, it will expose what is happening inside your infrastructure. And just before we switch over, we've got a demonstration of how to use Cost Explorer, a little walkthrough. We'll give you a break from my voice because for the last 30 minutes I've just been droning on. But Cost Explorer, it's probably worth just highlighting for those that don't know, is there are two ways of looking at your costs inside AWS. You can look at the bills and you can look at Cost Explorer. They are subtly different. So bills will show you the so from the very first second of the month to the last second of the month, everything that occurred inside that period will be shown up in bills. Now, the service teams are famously separate for innovation purposes at Amazon, so they're all decoupled, and so it means that they often have their own ways of doing things. And so some services from Amazon will inject the stuff into the usage report after a day or two, and sometimes they'll be in the next hour. But so if costs drop into the report after the end of the month, they won't appear on your bills. But Cost Explorer knows that this is the case and will then show you. It will show you all the costs that should be attributed from the first second to the last second of the month. So worth highlighting if you're ever in a deep dive situation, like I've been a few times, where you're trying to figure out exactly where those extra cents went. So that said, I can now switch over to Noah, who will introduce herself and give you a quick overview of Cost Explorer.
Thank you, Ian. Happy to be here. My name is Noah, and I'm from AWS, from cost optimization and enablement team. We help customers to optimize their workload and spend, and enable them with tools like Cost Explorer, organization, private pricing, and more tools that we have in AWS. So today we're gonna focus on demo on Cost Explorer. It's really easy and friendly tool for us to use in order for us to visualize, manage, and understand AWS cost and usage. We can create custom report, and we can detect our trend and cost anomaly. So let me share my screen and we can deep dive into Cost Explorer and how to use it. You see in my screen? Can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. So this is, once we enable a Cost Explorer, this is the first thing we're gonna see. We're gonna see the home page. And in here, it's really nice to have the cost summary of the last month. So we have the current month's cost, the forecast month cost, and we have trends, which is actually really nice for us to know the trends of our account. For example, I have RDS service costs are up 35%. I have recommendation that I haven't used, like you could have saved $53 in the last 30 days. So each one of the trend and recommendation I can click on and see how Cost Explorer calculated it. So for example, if I want to see why it up in 35% RDS, so I'm gonna click on it and then see why the increase in the cost. So in here you can see that the filter is service, group by usage type, and I can really deep dive and understand what causes the increase in cost. So after we see the overview of our trend, how much we are spending right now, we want to really deep dive and go into the Cost Explorer. In the Cost Explorer, we have an option to play with the period of time we want to see. For example, if we want to see for the last 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, Cost Explorer is a tool that can help us even forecast our usage and cost, and I can forecast for the next 3 months or the next 12 months based on my current workload. So it's really nice to use it in order for me to build an estimated budget, to forecast annual planning. So I can costume the period of time. So let's choose, let's say 6 months, and I can see it by monthly view, daily view, or hourly view. I said that Cost Explorer is a free tool. The only feature that costs money is the hourly feature. So if you enable the hourly view, so just make sure you go over the prices in AWS website in order for you to understand what are the costs. I can choose to group by service, link account, region, to really deep dive and understand what is the most spending region I have, what is the service I have, which services I'm using, and I can even do it more deep dive when I filter a specific service or specific region and then go deep dive by group by with a specific parameter. And every filter and group by that I'm doing here, I can also save as a report and then come back later. So I won't needs to do another filter and group by later. So I can save as and name the report in order for me to go into it. I can see the recent report. And another thing I can do, if I want to save the view that I filter, for example, if I filter only for EC2 instances, and I filter it by region, and for only link account of Ben. So if I want to save this view, I can bookmark it and name it. And after this, every time I'm going back to the bookmark I added, I can see in this view. So you can do it by adding a report or by bookmark it. So the first thing I want to see is the main services I'm using in order for me to go and analyze the trend, what's happening in the last 6 months, 3 months. So in here you can see that the main services I'm using is RDS, EC2 instances, EC2 other, a quick site. I can choose to see only usage, and to really play with the charge type I'm using. So for example, if I want to see just usage, and you can see in other, if I want to see what are the other services I'm using, I can scroll down, and in here you can see all the services I'm using. And you can download it to CSV and then really filter it and analyze it in your own way. So know that you have an option for every view that you are doing to download it to CSV. So if I want to analyze my biggest services, so let's, for example, go to RDS. I'm going to filter RDS, and I want to see, for example, what is the purchase option I'm using. We have in AWS an option to use a commitment in order to save money, and I'm going to walk it through in a few minutes. So in here you can see, I need to clear the filter, use the filter of RDS. In here you can see that the purchase option I'm using is on demand and reserved. So I'm using RI, it's a commitment I have, exchange of a discount we get. So in here, I'm seeing an opportunity to save money by purchase another reserve instances. And if you remember, it also was shown in the home by trend that we can save more money, and we can see how we can purchase, and now we can see the recommendation. So once I am seeing that services that are eligible for a commitment, and I'm going to walk you through which one are using only on demand, it's going to flag a red light, and then I know I have more opportunities to save money if I commit to a stable workload I have. If I want to see if I can commit to a workload, I can see it by hourly, for example, and see if the workload is stable for me to commit to. Another thing I want to see is the running hours. Sometimes I can see the spend really decreasing, for example, or increasing, and I want to see if the spend is decreasing, if the usage decreases as well, or the usage is stable, because maybe I purchase commitment and I get in discount and I'm spending less money on the service, but what's important to me is to see that the usage is stable and we are increasing our usage. Another thing that is good to know, that we have unblended cost and amortized cost. Unblended cost is the same as the bill, what we paid for. For example, if I paid my commitment all up front, I paid, for example, all the commitment all up front in May. So I'm going to see in here that I have reserve in May, but for the next months, I'm not going to see spend on it. So what I want to see is the amortized cost, in order for me to see the reserve instances I'm using splitting evenly by the months. So pay attention that you are using the amortized cost in order for you to analyze how much covered by on-demand or reserve. The same thing I want to do for EC2. When you come and analyze your EC2 instances, you can analyze by purchase option. You can see the instance type. For example, T3 small is the most spending services with other instance types. So you can see which one is the top spender for you, and down you can see the additional instances. So you can group by region to see which region you are spending most on EC2 instances. And in here, you can see also if you are spending mostly on demand or saving plans. For EC2, we have saving plans and reserve instances, option for commitment. So it's a really good way to understand how you are using your usage. Another thing we can do to analyze our workload, for example, EC2 other. If I want to see, okay, I see that I'm spending on EC2 other, but what are the API operation I've done? So you can see in here that I've created volume IO2, GP2, GP3. So for example, if you see that you are running mostly on GP2 on EC2 other, you can see if, depending on your business needs, if you can exchange for GP2 3 in order to save money. So this is another way to understand your usage and workload and see if you can optimize by moving to the latest generation for GP2 3. Another thing before we move, because we don't have a lot of time, it's S3. So when I'm using S3, I want to really break down and understand which classes I'm using, what are the spans. So we have a few classes in S3, depending on the frequency access, and each classes has their own prices. So it's really important to keep track on the classes you are using, the cost they're taking. For example, in here, if I want to see the usage and not only the spend, and I'm doing time storage on the filters. So in here, I can see that usage-wise, the standard storage is really low, but in the spend, it looks like I'm using mostly standard storage. So it's important to analyze your spend and also your usage in order to understand your pattern and to understand ways you can optimize. So for example, for S3, we want to make sure that we use the life cycle of our object correctly, that we are moving the object in the life cycle in the classes that are supposed to be, from standard, for example, to deep archive if we don't need to access the object anymore, or intelligent tiering that are going to move our object itself if we don't know the pattern of our object. So in here, it's also an easy way to understand our S3. Another last thing before moving to reports is tags. Like Ian said before, it's really important to have a clear strategy on how we tag our resources. Because here, for example, I can see my EC2 instances and I can even filter it by link account. But I can't see for the EMEA CES link account which resources are, who is the owner of the resources. So if I'm choosing tags, this is way easy for me to analyze and to have an owner for each resource. For example, I have project 2, project 1, that I tag my resources, and then I can go to the owner of project 2 and ask why is the trend increasing, decreasing, or why you exceeded the budget. So I can really track inside my organization with the department, with project I have. So it's really important to tag your resources, and also take into consideration that once we tag our resources, it's only going forward. So you don't have a chance to see the historical data. So this is it. And after I will finish the demo, I will have time for questions. We have an option to have reports. Like I showed you, I can save the view I have in Save As, and then I can see the reports. The one that have a lock on it, it's the report that AWS creates for you. And the one that doesn't have lock on them, it's the report that you created. Another great tool that we have in Cost Explorer is the budget. In order for us to track and get alert once we exceed our budget, is to use a budget alert. For example, here you can see in this budget that I exceeded the budget that I determined as the threshold. I had budget of 250, and you can see the current versus the budget that I exceeded by more than 200%, and the forecast of how much I'm gonna exceed by the end of the month. You can click on Create Budget, and you have two options: to use a template, which is a simple way to create the budget, it's built for you, and Customize, which is the advanced, that you can specific your parameter by your depending on your use case and your business needs. So if I'm using template, I can choose zero spend budget, monthly cost budget, saving plans coverage. So it's really easy tool to use. You just need to select the budget name, what is your budget, to enter the email you want to add in order for this person to get the alert once you exceed. And you can see down here when you're gonna be alerted. For example, here, when your actual spend reaches 85% or 100%. So this is really an easy way to work with. You can also do a customize and play with that and really track your cost and usage, and not be surprised by the end of the month and to see suddenly that by the end of the month when you get the bill that the budget is $500 when the budget you had is $100. So this one can help alert you. Let's go into the Cost Explorer. Another tool that we have is the cost anomaly detection. The budget alerts you when you are spending, for example, 85% of your budget. But for example, if your budget is $200 and if in one day you spend $100, it's not going to alarm you because it's not near the threshold that you determine. But the cost anomaly detection knows the pattern of your usage and your services, and if you spend for some services that the pattern is $10 a day, in one day you spend almost $100, it's gonna alert you. So it's really important to use both of the reports, budget and cost anomaly detection, in order for you to be on top of things. So you can see in here that I have one anomaly detected, the impact of it, the spend. You can see in here, if I'm entering here, I can see in Cost Explorer the detection that is so. For example, here I have a cost anomaly in guard duty, and I can really deep dive into it by clicking Cost Explorer. And here I see, okay, in here I had really something that is not in the pattern that my service is using to. So it can help track this. And here you can also download it or save it if you like. Another tool that we have is the right sizing recommendation. When we optimize our workload, the right order is to first right sizing your instances, modernization, moving to the latest generation, usually in AWS, not like when we buy iPhone, which is more expensive. When there is a new generation, usually it's a performance improvement. and also cost effective. So it's really good to know what are the latest generation and see if it can save you money. So when we optimize our workload, we want to make sure that first we are using the right size for our instances and that we are using the right generation for our instances before we commit for our workload in saving plans or ROI. So if I want to see if I'm using my instances correctly for EC2, I have the right size recommendation and it's based on the last 14 days. I can see the finding type, it's idle instances or underutilized instances. You can see it in here. I have advanced option to include saving plans and reserve instances in the recommendation, and I can see the recommendation within the same family instance type, or if it doesn't matter to me and I have an option by my business needs to do it across instance family. So I can see in here that I have optimization opportunity. I have 8 opportunities, the estimate monthly saving, and I can really see the instance type ID, the estimate monthly saving every month, and what are the findings. So in here, you can see that it's underutilized instance, and I can see the recommendation. Right now, I'm using T3 medium, and the system recommends to change it to T3 small because I'm only using 7% of my CPU. So it's really easy to use. You can download it to CSV and analyze it and see if you can change the instance type in order to save more money by doing so. So after we optimize our right sizing, we can see our workload that can be eligible for commitment. So in here, in cost management, we have saving plans and reservation. And I'm gonna walk you through the difference and what are the services that are eligible for it. So saving plans and reservation are commitment, and once we commit, we get a discount. It's like buying 10 classes for Zumba and get a discount by committing to 10 classes. So we get a discount for each class because we committed to it. So in here, saving plans and reserve instances, we commit to a specific money each hour, and we get a discount. For our ROI, it's a little bit different. We need to commit to a specific configuration. In saving plans, it's more flexible commitment because we need to commit to a compute hour each hour. So in the overview, we can see the saving plan summary. We can see that I have 2 active plans. What are the savings from the saving plans I purchased, and what are the top opportunity? What are the additional opportunity I have to save money each month? I have also managed a large subscription. So it's important when you purchase commitment, saving plans, or reserve instances to add a alert when it's expiring, because one day you can open the Cost Explorer, your bill, and see that for 1 month, it's the last month, the spend really increased, and you're gonna find out that the saving plans or ROI expired. So if you don't want to get surprised and to really forecast and plan ahead, you can alert when the saving plans or ROI are gonna expire. You can choose for 1 day, 7 days before, 30 days, 60, or all, and choose a person that's gonna get the alert once the time is up. So in here I see the summary of the saving plans. I can see the inventory. I can see all the saving plans I have, which are active, which are retired, what kind of type saving plans I have. We have 3 types. I'm gonna talk about it. which commitment I made, the start date, end date, and I can see everything in here, and even click purchase saving plans, download to CSV. And in here, we can see the recommendation. So whenever we want to see if we have an opportunity to optimize our workflow, so we can see the recommendation and see if we can commit to a specific workload. So in here, I can see the recommendation. I have 3 types of saving plans. I have compute saving plans, which is the most flexible commitment we can make. It's applies to EC2, Fargate, Lambda, and as you can see in here, regardless of region, instance family type, size, tenancy, operating system. So it gives us flexibility. Once we commit, we just need to commit to specific amount of money per hour. We can commit to only EC2 instance with less flexibility and to SageMaker if we are using it. So we can control of the time period. If we commit to a longer time of period, the discount can be much bigger. You can see for 1 year, the estimated monthly saving is $33. It's a demo account, so usually the numbers are much higher and the savings are really has a big impact on the spend. In here, it's a demo account, so it's looking small. 3 years, it's increased to 53. So the next option for me to increase my saving is to use all upfront, partial upfront, or no upfront, which is the payment option. If I want to pay all of it upfront, or no upfront, which means that I'm paying it each month or each period evenly, or partial upfront, I will pay some of the amount now, and some of them is evenly spread between the time period I have left. And I can see the recommendation based on the last 7 days, 30 days, or 60 days. So if I know that I upload a resource in the last 7 days and it's gonna reflect my pattern of the workload, so I can use 7 days, but 30 days it's long enough. And you can see the current monthly on demand, the spend that you are using on demand right now, how much for per hour, the estimated monthly spend, how much you're gonna spend for each hour after you commit to purchase saving plans, and the estimated monthly saving once you commit. So you can see the commitment here. And if you decide and you want to purchase, and you can use the recommendation, or you can decide to be on the conservative approach and to purchase for less. So you can, it's really depend on you. You can, when you purchase the saving plans, you can decide which one, the terms, 1 year, 3 years, and how much you're gonna commit, the hourly commitment. So in here, you can enter which amount you think you can commit to. So the recommendation, it's only a recommendation in the purchase option. So you can decide based on your business needs. After I purchase the saving plans, I have the utilization report. Once we purchase the saving plans, it's really important to track and see if we not over committed. So we want to make sure that we are on 100% or at least 95% of utilization in order for this commitment to be a good value for me. So I can see the saving plan spent. I can choose for the time range I want to see it. I can see the on-demand spend if I didn't commit it, and the total net saving for the time period I choose, and the utilization. And I can download it in order for me to see if I'm on track with the commitment. I can see which saving plans I did, if I'm underutilized, and the terms. So it's really important for us to follow it in here. We have the coverage report. We want to, if we have a plan, for example, that our business needs, we want to make sure that we coverage with saving plans 80% versus on demand. So in here you can see that I don't have, and we saw it once in the Cost Explorer when we analyzed the EC2, that I only have a few saving plans. So the coverage is 11%. It's not a lot. I have an option to save more. So you can make a plan in your business to see how much cover you want to achieve, and here you can track it to see how much coverage versus on demand you are on. And another thing we have is the RI. It's less flexible. We don't have a lot of option. You need to stick to a configuration. We do have some flexibility on size, but you can commit to EC2, RDS, Elasticache, Redshift, OpenSearch. So make sure to go over it if we have these services to see the recommendation. It's the same here in terms, payment option, and how you can commit. In here you can see that you don't commit per hour, you commit to a specific configuration. Region, platform, you need to commit to it. And in here you have the utilization report and coverage report. So I'm hoping it was helpful for you and that I covered most of the things, because Cost Explorer is very range subject. We have time for question, Ian?
Yeah, a couple of questions. If anybody, I mean, there was an awful lot in there, right? So it's and as we got a comment in the chat, there's an awful lot of information in a very tight space of time. Yes. So yes, anybody have any questions that they'd like to raise here before we go into the next section? That's the 7-second delay that I'll allow for 3 seconds for people coming off mute, 4 seconds for people to think of an answer. So it looks like that was pretty comprehensive. And just so I will touch upon a lot of the points that you covered in that session as well. So for anybody that was struggling to keep along, then keep up, then we'll do a bit of a revisal afterwards. And also, of course, the session is recorded, so you can always watch it again later and go over the bits that you weren't quite following at the time. So thanks very much indeed, Noah.
Thank you.